A Moroccan asylum seeker went on a raping spree, and all the French could think to do was keep on letting him go free. Bring more jihadis in, they say. What could possibly go wrong? In the face of all this madness, we've got to remain strong. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to This Week in Jihad. I am Robert Spencer, and we have here the great David Wood. David, I don't know, what do you think? That was kind of a D- for a poem, wasn't it?
Yeah, that wasn't one of your best.
Yeah. All right, how about
good.
this one?
It was good and timely, but yeah, come on. Yeah. Well, you want to take another crack? You want to take another crack at this?
Let's try it again. Muhammad, he liked him young, real young. So does Dan Hakikaju. But when you ask them to explain it, they all just blame the Jew. In Malaysia, they burnt kids with hot metal spoons. That's what happens when your prophet is Looney Tunes. All right.
A little better. It's always good to have multiple poems in case one,
I really had trouble. Actually, the next one I can recycle. I'll use it another time. But I had trouble deciding, ladies and gentlemen, on that. Somebody said, "Oh, this is a good comment. You just read a poem?"
What? Where have you been?
Ladies and gentlemen, yes, it has become,
kind
of by accident, has become a tradition for me to recite a dreadful poem at the beginning of every This Week in Jihad. And this week was a special Red Letter Week with two. Anyway, David, unfortunately, we have some jihad to discuss. Oh, hey, some of it is right here.
You just mentioned some of it.
Yeah, I just mentioned, we'll get to those stories, but I also happen to have this book right here, Muhammad, A Critical Biography, which I wrote a while ago, and it just came out, and Amazon has been waging jihad against it, taking down favorable ratings, taking down positive reviews. So it seems like they are, there's the jihad of the pen, the jihad of the tongue, the jihad of the sword, and now we have the jihad of the reviews. That this book is just not going to get a favorable reception if Amazon has anything to do with it.
They did something similar with your critical Quran. It's different, but I remember your book was the #1 Quran. So it's the #1 bestseller in Qurans, and so they removed it from the Quran category so that people who are looking for Qurans wouldn't see the critical Quran. And then a bunch of other books that were on the top Qurans list were books that weren't even Qurans. They were like kids' books that have a Quran verse in them or something like that. And those would qualify as Qurans. But a book that's actually the entire Quran with commentary, that was no longer a Quran.
Yeah, and in this case, every author, when your book comes out, you will have the same experience. You want to see what people think of it. So Amazon immediately put up a review saying how terrible the book was, the Muhammad book, that is, the new book. And it did not have this little notation, though, that Amazon usually puts up, verified purchase. Now, of course, theoretically, somebody might have bought it somewhere else, but Amazon really is basically the book market in the United States today. And so if you don't have that verified purchase, most likely you did not actually purchase the book, but are posting a fake review. And the review saying how bad the book was indeed without the verified purchase symbol. And it was negative, but that's going to happen. That always happens with my books. They're either rated 5 stars or 1, which is the lowest rating you can give on Amazon. But then I would see other reviews appear, and a little while later they would disappear. And favorable ratings appear, and then they would disappear. And so Amazon clearly doesn't want people liking this book about Muhammad. You got to wonder, what on earth could be in this book about Muhammad that is based 100% on the earliest Islamic texts about Muhammad? What could there possibly be in it that they wouldn't want people to know?
I have no idea, but we're going to find out tomorrow because we're going to go live 7 p.m. Eastern time on my channel to so you can give a little preview of the contents of your book, and so I'm a little more familiar with all of your arguments, so I can destroy them when we debate this.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who may be just joining us in the last 5 or 10 years may not know that back when I wrote the first edition of Did Muhammad Exist, David and I debated Anjem Chowdhury, the famous jihad leader in Britain, and Omar Bakri, who was a jihad leader in Britain at that time, who ended up leaving the country thinking everything was okay, and the British authorities actually uncharacteristically barred him from returning. And anyway, we debated both of them, and David argued on my side against the historical validity of the texts about Muhammad. And then he and I debated with David taking the other side. Actually, oh no, I'm sorry. He was in favor of the validity of the texts when we debated each other. Yes, that's right. And against it
right.
when we debated Chowdhury and Bakri. So
Yeah, so guys, this is so I've debated both Robert and Jay Smith on this issue.
oh, that's right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I actually disagree with them, but I always have to acknowledge in the debates it is very, very difficult to argue because the things you would be looking for from a historical perspective, you're looking for early sources, you're looking for multiple sources, you're looking for independent sources, so they're not all just copying each other and stuff. And you just don't have that. You just don't have that for Muhammad. So you kind of have to rely on secondary historical principles to try and like weed through late information to try and discover kernels of truth and so on. And so your confidence in what's going on is going to depend on what kind of confidence you place in other kinds of historical principles, since you're not dealing with early material. And so it's actually hard to, if you just have this big gaping hole where there should be all this information about Muhammad, that's kind of open to a bunch of different interpretations. And so we'll have our disagreements, but Robert has upped his game with a new book, and I'm looking forward to destroying it.
Yeah, you can't just keep people asking me, how's this different from the truth about Muhammad or did Muhammad exist? And you can't actually, publishers don't allow you to publish the same book twice. So this book is actually quite different and has arguments in it that David will be shocked and amazed when he sees, showing all the incredible variability and contradictions in the Islamic tradition, even on things that people just take for granted as being axiomatically historically true. And all that demonstrates, of course, that it's a lot of myths and legends. But anyway, more on that tomorrow. Yes?
Hey, I actually, I should bring this up tomorrow, but I remember when we debated Anjem Chowdhury and Sheikh Omar Bakri, and I actually pointed out at the beginning, I said, guys, I agree with you that Muhammad existed. I agree on the general timeline and so on. I don't believe you can defend it using your methods, because your guys' methods like so stupid and like something a historian would laugh at, that I don't believe you can defend even your prophet's existence. I said, I believe I can defend it better than you can, because I'll use methods that you would never in a million years use. And so on. And so we debated, and wasn't their case like, but the Quran says Muhammad, so the Quran is true. We're like, what that's what you came up with?
That was
like
it.
You knew you were debating whether this stuff is historically reliable, and you came out with, but the Quran says Muhammad.
Yep. I couldn't believe it. Chowdhury said that. I thought Chowdhury was a smart guy. He seems to be very clever, but of course that's just in relation to the idiotic British authorities. So he said, it's, of course Muhammad existed. It's in the Quran. So there you go, man. Anyway, that debate you can find, I believe, on the YouTubes, and also the earlier debate between David and me on the issue of Muhammad's existence, and David's debate with Jay Smith. And we will be discussing more about this tomorrow. In the meantime, I did mention in both poems tonight, I believe, in this red lettered 2-poem week, that I mentioned actual incidents, and the first one was in France when a 19-year-old girl was found raped and murdered by a 22-year-old Moroccan asylum seeker. And you might wonder, what is he seeking asylum from, going from Morocco to Britain when Morocco's not at war? What is that all about, David?
Yeah, isn't it weird? I mean, you got all these war zones and so on, and so like you sit there and think, okay, well, um, maybe it's not the wisest thing to bring in as many Syrians as possible, but at least you're thinking, okay, that there is a bad situation in Syria there, so okay, I don't know, I don't know what's going on, but it's rough. But there is a war. There are people suffering horribly. What in the world's going on in Morocco that need to flee to France? Like,
Yeah, I don't
like,
know.
is there something I missed? Is there something I missed right there?
I actually have a friend who went to Morocco last year and had a wonderful time. Said the people were very friendly, very interested in discussing religion, which of course he wanted to be a little bit evasive about because he's not a Muslim. And he went surfing on the coast, got thrown off course, ended up in the desert, and walked along until he found a guy with a camel who he paid $10 to carry him back to the city. Had quite a lot of adventures in Morocco, but he didn't see any war. All right, in Malaysia, this was in the other poem, we have this terrible story about this Islamic group, David. And the Islamic group is called, let me scroll down here, Global Ikhwan, that is Brotherhood Services and Business, or GISB Holdings. This is an Islamic group that promotes an Islamic way of life in Malaysia and elsewhere, and there have now been 572 children rescued from this place, from this group, and it seems as if there were multiple examples of sexual assault of children. The story is not finished. It is a developing, ongoing story. May end up being even more than 572. But surely these people, they must be misunderstanding Islam if they're molesting children. Am I right, David?
Yeah, because in Islam, never supposed to do anything with kids until they're fully grown adults.
Yeah,
Oh wait, that's not Islam.
indeed. In Islam, you have, for example, in Pakistan, the Council of Islamic Ideology, which is a government organization, said Islam does not forbid marriage of young children. And it's not just there. In Turkey, the Directorate of Religious Affairs, the Diyanet, said that under Islamic law, girls as young as 9 years old can marry. Where'd they get the 9 years old thing?
Huh, one of life's great mysteries, Robert. Oh
Yes.
wait. Oh wait, I just remembered. It's all over the Muslim sources. And keep in mind, the Muslim sources don't say, oh, you have to wait till she's 9 or something like that, or it's okay at 9. It was just Muhammad had sex with a girl at 9. He married a 6-year-old, but they don't say you have to wait. It's I have to say the impression you get from the Muslim sources is that um, you don't want to. Matter of fact, in in the schools of Islamic jurisprudence, when they were discussing this, they were concerned about damaging the girls so that the two holes become one hole. You get a fistula. So that's what they're worried about. And so when you marry a 4 or 5 or 6-year-old or whatever, you can have sex with her. You're supposed to pay attention to when you whether you're going to rip her open or not, whether you're going to do some permanent damage to her. Other than that, it's fair game. Anyway, long story short, the Muslim sources, the impression you get is not, oh, as soon as she's 9, you're fine. She could be 5 or 6, as long as you think that you're not going to permanently damage her.
There you go. This is this is attested to by other Islamic authorities. Ishaq Akintola, a professor of Islamic eschatology and director of Muslim Rights Concern in Nigeria, says Islam has no age barrier in marriage, and Muslims have no apology for those who refuse to accept this. Dr. Abdul Hamid Al Ubaidi in Iraq, a scholar of Islamic law, says this: there is no minimum marriage age for either men or women in Islamic law. The law in many countries permits girls to marry only from the age of 18. This is arbitrary legislation, not Islamic law. And in Saudi Arabia, finally, Dr. Salih bin Fawzan, there is no minimum age for marriage, and girls can be married even if they are in the cradle.
Hey, Robert, so we know it's in the Muslim sources, but this reminded me, I don't know if you saw it, but the LA Times, and I only saw this because they published an article just a couple days ago on mutta marriage, temporary marriage
I didn't see
in,
it.
in in Indonesia. In Indonesia, it's basically going through the roof where all these wealthy Saudis go to Indonesia to have temporary marriage, to marry a girl for a week or something like that. And it's talking about these young women and girls and so on that they don't want to do this, but they're basically vulnerable. That's who predators always go after. Vulnerable girls, their parents are sick or dying or incapacitated or something like that, so they have no way of making money, and so they sell themselves to these rich Saudi guys for a week here and there and so on. And but anyway, that article, when I was reading that article, another one popped up, and I'm just shocked that LA Times is covering stuff like this, because normally they're very, very one-sided. But another article from just a few days ago. So this is September 7th. So earlier this month. It's titled, Iraqi Women Fear Rise in Child Marriages as Lawmakers Consider Giving Conservative Clerics More Say.
Wow. The
Think
LA
about that.
Times.
Yeah, so the government is saying, hey, this is a very religious place. We need to give these conservative religious clerics a little more say in lawmaking. And women say, oh my goodness, they're going to go for child marriage.
Yeah.
Like, Robert, what would these women think that Islam has to do with child? Like, how do these women just know that, like, automatically? Wait, you're giving those guys, these lovely religious scholars, you're giving these sheikhs and imams, you're going to let them start having more say in the law? They're going for kids. They're going to go for kids. That's instantly what
They
they're going to
know
do.
it.
How do
Yep.
these people know this? How do these people know this? How does everyone in the world except Western politicians and journalists know what Islam teaches about this stuff? And they know as soon as you say, oh yeah, we're going to dial up our Islam in this country, they're like, they're going for kids. They're going for kids.
Yep. And stories like that, David, and the list of Islamic authorities that I read a minute ago saying that child marriage was okay, authorities from all over the world, that is why people care about the stories of Muhammad and Aisha. It's a funny thing because it's become this big contentious issue, as you well know, in Islamic apologetics and counter apologetics, that you have people saying Aisha was really older, the hadith saying she was 9 are not authentic, so on and so on. And yet those people who advance those arguments never acknowledge the real problem, and that is that whatever they may be able to come up with to claim that Aisha was really older, or that the stories about her being 9 when the marriage was consummated are not authentic, and so on, whatever they may be able to come up with in that regard, Muslims are imitating Muhammad marrying children all over the world. And there are Islamic authorities saying it's okay because of Muhammad's example, as taught in those stories. Whatever their status may be, they are taken for granted as authentic.
And there are, kind of a message to Western journalists and politicians and so on. There are real world consequences to them defending this stuff constantly, right? When they're constantly giving cover to Islam and constantly saying anyone who has a problem with anything in Islam must be a racist, Islamophobic, hate-mongering bigot. And when they spend their entire careers silencing any criticism of Islam, and we are sitting here saying guys, if these religious leaders, if these sheikhs and imams get their way, there's going to be some really, really, really bad stuff going on, and they silence us. Guess who suffers in the end? A bunch of little kids.
Exactly.
And and you can't even criticize it because you'll be silenced. It's freaking insane.
Yep. And the Muslim women, was it in Iraq you were saying? They know
Yep.
this. And
Hmm.
they don't want to see more Islamic law applied because they know what it'll mean for the little children. All right, I got a funny story out of Pakistan, or if it's not funny, it's kind of ironic. Anyway, um, I know I thought I had the guy's picture here. Yeah, there he is. Not a very good picture, but that is Maulana Tariq Masood, and he is a Muslim cleric in Pakistan.
I
And
just have to hang on. I just have to say that is the wrong color.
the
You
wrong
need
color.
something. Yeah, there's his little headgear there. It's not a good color. That sort of baby blue. Baby blue. Come on, you need something that brings out the rage in your eyes, dude. Not very intimidating.
Well, see, he's not a descendant of Muhammad, or he could wear a black one. But anyway, that is Maulana Tariq Masood. He is a renowned Pakistani Islamic scholar, and he has long been an advocate of the death penalty for apostasy and blasphemy. And so people in Pakistan say we really shouldn't execute blasphemers. And Maulana Tariq Masood, with his headdress there, has been right there saying, "Oh no, we gotta execute the blasphemers." Now he is in hiding. He has been accused of blasphemy.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry. I should be more compassionate. But Maulana Tariq Masood, you know what he's being charged with blasphemy about? You're going to
Nope.
love this. He says, why are you following Nabi, that is, of course, Muhammad, the prophet, when he did not know how to read and write? The one, that is Muhammad, who is presenting the Quran, did not even write a single word and called others to write for him, which led to grammatical mistakes. No corrections were done because Muhammad did not know there were grammatical errors, which continue to this day. So he's pointing out the fact that we have pointed out many times that there are grammatical errors in the Arabic text of the Quran, and he's being charged with blasphemy. He says his words were taken out of context, which is a remarkable new original response that I never heard before.
Yeah, my words were being taken out of context. What I said was the kuffar claim that there are grammatical mistakes in the Quran. You guys left out the kuffar part and just acted like I'm saying it. I didn't say that. Look at my headdress. I'm baby blue.
Yeah. But there actually are, you can see in the critical Quran, there are grammatical errors in the Quran. The guy's telling the truth, but the truth is not acceptable in
And
Pakistan.
really, Robert, I mean, these guys never pick up on sort of the wisdom of not advocating slaughtering people over blasphemy. Because if the religious leaders get their way and they all agree, yes, we need the government to enforce the death penalty for blasphemy. Well, there are so many Muslim groups accusing each other of blasphemy for all kinds of things. I mean, let alone saying there are mistakes in the Quran or something like that. I mean, they'll accuse each other of blasphemy over all kinds of things. Oh, you don't approve of this companion. Oh, you approve of that companion. Oh, you approve that. No, you reject this source. Well, you reject that source. And they're all accusing each other of blasphemy. It's like, for your own sakes, you might want to agree that you don't slaughter people for that stuff.
Have you seen, it's years old, but have you seen that wonderful clip at memri.org, memri.org, folks, Middle East Media Research Institute? Wonderful clip of a cooking show out of Iraq. And
No.
it's a Sunni cooking show. I mean, it's not, it's just a cooking show. But the guy who is running it is a Sunni, and he keeps getting prank calls from Shia because it's a cooking show. It's supposed to be an interactive cooking show,
Mhm.
but everybody who's calling is a Shiite, and he just gets so upset, and it's a riotous clip. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
I'm
Uh,
gonna have to check that out.
oh yeah, uh, and the thing is that the Shiites actually mock Aisha because the
Yeah, they
Shiites
do.
hate Aisha,
Hmm.
and
The
so
whole Abu Bakr family.
and they yeah exactly. So they tell the guy, in this recipe, do you have to add the breast milk of Aisha? And he says, "By Allah, Saddam knew how to deal with you people," and it's,
Classic.
it's a riot.
I mean,
And
it's funny because it sounds like a skit I would come up with, but it was
oh
like
yeah, oh yeah, but
real.
it's absolutely real. Oh yeah, you got
Some of
it.
the some of those Shia guys go hard, and they think some of them actually believe that Aisha poisoned Muhammad, and
Yeah,
that it wasn't the Jewish woman. They think no, that's just what the family of Abu Bakr made up to cover up the fact that they were poisoning Muhammad so they could take over in Islam.
you can read about it in Muhammad, a critical biography. Aisha and Hafsa in Shiite tradition are accused of murdering Muhammad. So yeah, they got no respect for her at all. Uh, Also in Pakistan, David, not only do we have that poor Maulana on the run for blasphemy. Hey, Tariq, I know you're watching tonight, you can stay with me. All right, you can if you get here, I will put you up. But there's one rule though: you can't kill me for blasphemy while you're here. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah. If Robert takes care of you while you're here, he gets a all the blasphemy he wants.
yes,
Get out of death free card.
get out of the death penalty for blasphemy free card. Do not circumambulate
That
the
would be a
Kaaba.
funny skit. That would be a funny skit. You take a guy on the run for blasphemy in your house, and then you wake him up every morning and you're like, "Ah, your prophet's a pedophile," and you're like ripping up the Quran and stuff.
And he just has to take it
Yeah,
because I got my blasphemy free card.
oh boy, that'd be good.
Also in Pakistan, there was another man charged with blasphemy, a doctor named Shah Nawaz Shah. And Shah Nawaz Shah was murdered in Umerkot in Sindh, and the people who murdered him were the police because he was accused of blasphemy. And it was just the accusation. He had not faced trial. Nothing had happened. It's just that he was accused. So that's the kind of thing that happens in Pakistan. We also
And
yes,
British politicians, of course, you know what we need to do? We need to bring all these wonderful police officers who kill people and everyone who agrees with them. We need to bring them to the U.S.
hmm
Or to the U.K. or to Canada or to France or to Germany. We need them. We need them all. We need this. We need as many of these guys who want to slaughter everyone for disagreeing with their prophet as possible. It'll make the world a better place.
yeah. Here's another guy who is in Pakistan, but I think that once Keir Starmer, oh, and hey, Keir, I want to give you a shout out too, but Keir Starmer, once he hears about this guy, is going to give him a special invitation to come to Britain, maybe join his cabinet. This is Farhatullah Gori. That's a good name for a jihadi, Gori, because that's what he wants for us. But anyway, Farhatullah Gori issued a video on Telegram this past week urging his followers to derail trains in Delhi, Mumbai, and other major cities across India. He said target petrol pipelines, their logistics chain, and their collaborators. Disrupt the railway lines, their transport system. This will precipitate chaos. Why does he want to precipitate chaos?
Same reason we always discuss the real wisdom, and this is a there's a reason this tactic works. Muhammad said he's been made victorious with terror, but you at the end of the day, you're trying to leave people with the option of the only alternatives you have are complete chaos or submit to Islam. That's what they want to leave. That's what they want to leave people with. That's what ISIS want to leave people with. That's why this like endless bombing and destruction of everything, unless you're on board with their project. Kill everyone unless you're on board with their project. They want people to just have no concept of peaceful, friendly, calm living at all anymore. It's you will have complete anarchy and chaos and destruction in society, to where you can't send your kids outside the door, to where you can't go to work without being afraid, or you submit to Islam. And because at the end of the day, that's the only reason they're going to submit to Sharia, is if the only alternative is nothing but chaos and destruction.
So what they've done there is strike terror in the enemies of Allah, as the Quran directs.
Mm-hmm.
And
Works.
speaking of striking terror, our final story out of Pakistan this week is this is a Christian woman, Shagufta Kiran, who was arrested back in 2021, allegedly for sharing blasphemous content on WhatsApp. And she has now been sentenced to death for blasphemy. And so she also, if she can get out, is invited to stay here with us. But the Maulana Tariq Masood, he has to agree not to kill her. Man, that Quran is looking a little worse for wear there, David.
This Quran's all messed up, man. Why? I never started. This is always a reaction to dudes doing messed up stuff.
Yep.
Messed up stuff. And then, because really, I mean, the real message of Islam that we see over and over and over again is, we have no respect for you. You're the worst of creatures. We're going to slaughter you all in the name of Allah. You're complete garbage. We can kill you, rape your women, all this stuff, take your daughters, make them our sex slaves, do all this stuff. Oh, and by the way, we demand complete respect from you in return to what we plan on doing. We demand the utmost respect for our book and our prophet. And guys, some people just need to hear no. If anyone in history really needs to hear no, we're not giving you an inch, it's these guys.
There you go. So I've got so many stories that bear out what you're just saying. For example, out of Mali, in Africa, the jihadis in Mali this past week, in the Mopti region of Mali, they told people, the Christians, not many Christians in Mali to start with, and they came to them. They said that they had to either pay them a tax, convert to Islam, or leave the area. Where do they get that idea?
I mean, they must have gotten it from you, because you're the one who says that Islam teaches that stuff, right?
Yeah, that's true. When I first came out, 20 some years ago, saying that, and people were saying, oh, no, that's antiquated, that's medieval. Modern Islam doesn't teach that.
Yeah. So you said that that's what Islam teaches, and everyone said you're wrong. But then these guys are doing it, so they must have gotten it from you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And even now, it's only dimly understood, because the Christians in Mali themselves explained that they told us we had to pay zakat, when actually it's not zakat that they were told to pay. I'm 100% certain they were not told to pay zakat. They just know that the Muslims pay a tax called zakat, so they figured that was it. But the tax they were told to pay, no doubt, was jizya, which is in chapter 9, verse 29 of the Quran, a sign of the submission of the non-Muslims to the Muslims.
Yep. Muhammad loved the jizya.
Yep. Umar
wanted
said,
to be,
yes.
No, Muhammad wanted to be showered in jizya.
This is a G-rated show, sir.
You're talking about blasphemy.
All right. Also in Mali, we had a massive Al-Qaeda attack in Bamako, the capital. 70 people killed. And they attacked an elite police training academy. They attacked the airport and they set fire to the presidential palace. The French and the Americans have already given up on Mali and left the country. The Russians are there, but according to the Reuters report that I'm working from here, the Mali jihadis wiped out scores of experienced Russian mercenaries in July. So I thought this was kind of interesting just in the sense that these African governments constantly promise that they're going to wipe out these jihad groups, and Western countries come and help. And invariably, we've seen over the last few years, Western countries leaving, giving up, and the military's constantly overpowered by the jihadis. You would almost think that the jihadis have a broad base of support, including financial support, such that they are larger in the more formidable forces than the national government's forces.
Yeah, I have to say, because we've been hearing this for years that, oh, it's only a tiny, tiny fraction of a percentage of Muslims who actually believe this stuff. It's a 99.999% of Muslims are all about peace and tolerance. It's only this really, really, really weird fringe. It's like, okay, well, if that weird fringe is going around killing people, then all you got to do is go catch those guys and problem solved.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just weird because those guys, their numbers keep growing no matter how fast you kill them.
Yep.
And then they end up defeating Western militaries. But Robert, earlier when you were starting off this story, you said, and the Americans and the French have given up, and then you continued. I was like, no, you could have stopped right there. You could have stopped it right after that. You said the Americans and the French have given up. They've given up trying to deal with this.
That is certainly true. That is certainly true. And that's been for a while now, but it's becoming increasingly obvious. All right, in Nigeria, which is a big flashpoint of the jihad that we have covered many times, there were several attacks on Christians in central Nigeria, in Kermankare village, a Christian village in Kachiya County in southern Kaduna State. 2 Christians were murdered while they were working on their farms. And around at the same time, Fulani jihadis attacked a church, 2 churches actually, an evangelical church and a Catholic church in Bakin Pa Maro village, killing 3 Christians during worship services and kidnapping 30 others. That was one story out of Nigeria. And what do you think the deal is with the kidnappings?
I don't know. It just keeps happening, doesn't it?
It does.
Did they get that from you too?
Yeah, because it's really derived from chapter 47, verse 4 of the Quran, and then Islamic law, which allows you to kidnap infidels and then enslave, kill, ransom, or free them, depending on what's best for the Islamic community. And these jihad groups in Africa particularly, they do have a big moneymaker. I think they have massive support in the Islamic world, but also they have a constant income stream from ransoms of captives.
Well, shame on you, Robert, for bringing that to everyone's attention.
Yes.
If you just kept quiet about it, these guys wouldn't even know.
Yeah, because in Britain and in elsewhere in the West, we know that the Muslims are completely peaceful. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because take, for example, this gentleman. I love this guy's picture. He looks like he's been through a lot. You can see him there, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
That is the Imam Talhat Mughal. And he is in Britain. And along with in Rotherham, in fact, where the rape gangs ran free for years while the authorities were afraid of being called Islamophobic. Talhat Mughal was an imam, and he and 4 of his family members have been jailed. Muhammad Uwais Mughal, Muhammad Basharat Ali Mughal, Muhammad Tabarak Mughal, and Ahmed Mughal. And they have all been imprisoned because They were they were recruited by the Imam to inflict shocking violence. That's according to the news report from Britain. They were sent to begin prison sentences for their role in a violent brawl in which one man suffered injuries requiring reconstructive facial surgery while another suffered a stab wound. And it does look like the Imam was deeply involved in this because he's a little worse for wear himself. Surely, I don't understand this story at all, David. I mean, this is a man of peace, right? Somebody who's dedicated his life to understanding Islam properly, communicating it effectively. He would never. He must be a man of total peace. He would never have gotten in a fight.
I mean, it's obvious, Robert. Have you been listening to the news for the past 3 decades? Where you been? How's this confusing? How's this even?
Yeah, I've been just watching Muhammad hijab videos, and I'm stunned. I don't understand this at all.
Me strong. Me strong than you.
Yes.
You see?
All right, we had a mystery story out of Kosovo. A very mysterious incident. These are sacred icons from an Orthodox church in Kosovo, in a place called Medjugorje, not Medjugorje, the famous Catholic area, but this is Medjugorje in the area of Ibarski Kolasin. But it is a historic Orthodox church site where annual prayers are held and the village feast of Pentecost is celebrated. And they went there to prepare for celebrations and found icons scattered, and one of them was broken in half, shot full of bullet holes. And one of the local people there said, "We were met with a shocking and disappointing sight at Medjugorje. The icons were not in their usual place. We found them 15 meters away in the woods. One of the oldest icons, which had been at Medjugorje for 50 years, was broken in half. In the upper half of the icon, we saw clearly 3 bullet holes, likely from a firearm. There are also 3 bullet holes in the roof of the gazebo where the icons used to hang." It looks as if Kosovo police had come by earlier with firearms. Now, I don't know if they had anything to do with it, but who might have been involved with this? In Kosovo, a historically Orthodox Christian area that is now ruled by not under Islamic law strictly, but certainly under Muslim government.
Enraged Protestants.
Yes, because we see them smashing icons all over the United States.
It happens, Robert.
Yes.
There are a number of unsolved attacks on churches in Western nations. You know who's doing it?
I do.
Protestants, Mormons, Quakers, all those guys.
Yeah, especially the Quakers.
Quakers are out of control.
Yes. All right, we had an interesting story since you took it back to the United States. Let's go there. North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina. The Imam John Ederer, who is apparently a convert to Islam.
It's Yahya.
Yeah. And he preached a Friday sermon last week where he says, every year around this time, we hear about Muslim children being discriminated against under the guise of 9/11 education and remembrance. And he goes on to say, they're being told in class that Islam and Muslims was the cause. They're being told in class that Islam and Muslims was the cause of this terrorist act. And he says the word Islam and Muslim should never be used if somebody feels that they need to be teaching about 9/11, for the simple fact that Islam had absolutely nothing to do with anything that happened on the day of 9/11. He went on to say that the United States is a terrorist state, as is Israel. Now, David, I thought that was interesting enough in itself, but especially in light of another story out of New York City. Because in New York City, there was recently yet another rally of pro-Hamas demonstrators, and they held up the sign. Can you see the sign there? I got this. This was a screenshot out of a video, so it's not entirely clear, but it says, "Long live October 7th." And that's the
Wow.
Samadoun Network, which is a pro-Jihad, pro-Hamas group. Now, I thought that was kind of interesting in light of the North Carolina Imam is saying Muslims have nothing to do with 9/11. Islam had nothing to do with 9/11. And so it's clear, he, for whatever reason, wants to distance Islam and Muslims from the terror attack with which they are most associated in the United States. And meanwhile, these other Muslims in New York City are happily affirming, yeah, we love it. We love terror attacks. We love that 1,200 Jews were murdered on October 7th, and we're praising that. Can you see a time when it might be that we got imams in the United States saying, "Long live 9/11"?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they have been, Robert. They're just a little careful about saying it in public.
Indeed.
You remember all that stuff? We've talked about it before. Even right after 9/11, there was that Jihad Comes to Small Town USA, where an American female reporter went into the mosque that was going to be having a presentation. Was going to be having a presentation on how the 9/11 attacks had nothing to do with Islam. She got there early when they were having their Arabic discussion, and they said, "Oh, the session hasn't started yet." And she says, "Oh, but I mean, I'm sorry, I'm here early, but can I just sit here? I don't have anywhere else to go." And they said, "Yeah, fine, sit here." They didn't know she's fluent in Arabic.
Yep.
And she was listening to them, and they thought it was hilarious, and they were all discussing how they can use it to spread more terror when they're on planes and so on like that. It wasn't about actually going out and doing attacks. It was about how to mess with people who are already worried, right? So they're like, yeah, make sure you get up and down, lots during the plane and grab different things and keep going to the restroom and stuff on the plane and stuff. And they're all talking about the things they've been doing to freak people out and so on. And so she listened to this the entire time. And then the actual English session started. And then it's, oh, what is this? You guys misrepresent Islam. They have nothing to do with Islam. Oh!
That's it, man. I remember that actually not long after 9/11. I was flying somewhere, and there were about 30 Muslims all dressed like this editor character. As converts often love to LARP as if they're Bedouins or something and dress this way. And there were all these guys with the henna beards and the kaftans and the kufis, about 30 of them, and they all got down and said their prayers in the at the gate before they boarded the airplane. And I saw that people were nervous about getting on the plane and thought, I wonder if this is a little bit of strike terror in the enemies of Allah, Anyway, out of Germany, there are always stories from Germany. And so we had the story of Rassem A. They never give the last names. And he's from Syria. He walked up to a 79-year-old man who was wearing a cross, and he ripped it off his neck and punched the victim in the face. He also beat up several other people. And the prosecutors think this may have had something to do with religion. But
no chance.
The police let him go anyway. After all, what harm could he possibly do?
Well, none unless he's a Quaker.
Yeah, they don't want to commit any Islamophobia here.
And Quakers, they're stupid oatmeal.
Hey, I got a good one for you here. Let me find him. I know I got him here. This is Biman Prasad, and he is the Deputy Prime Minister of Fiji, as well as Minister of Finance. And he gave a speech on the birth of Muhammad, and he said that Muhammad, as the messenger of Allah, preached the values of peace, inclusivity, tolerance, and ethical behavior. And he said that all Fijians should reflect on Muhammad's teachings and apply them in their daily lives. He says the principles of social, ethical, moral, and religious conduct championed by the Prophet form the foundation for societal, economic, and political progress. That's Biman Prasad, Deputy Prime Minister of Fiji. What do you think? Is he right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
How could the prime minister be wrong about anything?
He's the Deputy Prime Minister.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Yeah, she's still up there.
Anyway, Muhammad, of course, did not leave an ethical example. Muhammad did not, even by the testimony of Islamic sources, he does not give us principles of ethical behavior. But
are you drunk, Robert? Have you not read Surah 33, verse 21? Muhammad is a beautiful pattern of conduct.
Right, he's the pattern of conduct. That doesn't mean he's a good one.
This program's starting to sound awfully Islamophobic, Robert. I'm just tossing that out there.
Well, you're right. You're right. Let's go to better story here. Out of The Hague in the Netherlands. Actually, I'm sorry, Rotterdam. In Rotterdam, last week, one person was killed and another was seriously wounded in a stabbing incident. The man who stabbed the people, he attacked them at random. He had 2 knives and he was shouting Allahu Akbar. And Crystal Arntz, a police spokesperson, said, we have arrested a suspect. We're going to question him. We will look at all the witness statements, and then we will look at what the possible motive was. He screamed Allahu Akbar. He had knives. He killed
Robert, you're drawing a lot of attention to this. I mean, who doesn't have knives? Who doesn't have knives? I got knives right here. I got knives right here. Well, I guess I'm a jihadi. Come on, Robert.
Well, have you screamed Allahu Akbar and killed anybody lately?
No, but minor differences.
Yeah, it's all just the great Abrahamic religions. All right, we should not neglect stupid infidel time. Hey, Rashida Tlaib, the congresswoman from Michigan, she's very unhappy this week because of this political cartoon. And it says, as you can see, odd, my pager just exploded. Referring to the story from last week where the Hezbollah terrorists' pagers all exploded. Rashida Tlaib is famous for her sympathy for jihadis. So Henry Payne, a political cartoonist, he drew this for National Review. And everybody is enraged, David. He's done this terrible thing. And he works actually for the Detroit News. He's not a political columnist for the Detroit News, and he didn't draw this for the Detroit News. He writes a column about automobiles for the Detroit News. But they have been demanding his firing, and Rashida Tlaib said herself, wait, let me find it here. She said that it was legitimizing, it would incite further hate and violence against Arab and Muslim communities.
Yeah, we're all going to say, hey, this guy made a cartoon. Let's go slaughter Muslims.
Yeah, well, that's the idea, that if we say something that's critical, it supposedly endangers Muslims.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, meanwhile, Jews and Christians are the worst of creatures. Fight those who do not believe in Allah. I've been commanded to fight people until they say there's no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. The hour will not come until you fight the Jews, and the Jews are hiding behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees are saying, hey, Muslim, there's a Jew behind me, come kill him. None of that could have any connection with any sort of violence. But if you post a cartoon or something, it's a bloodbath waiting to happen, Robert, and that's what we hear. And the ultimate goal of of someone like Rashida Tlaib and the Council on American Islamic Relations is to produce the same situation that you have in the UK, where you can literally be gang raping little girls and no one will say a word about it because they are absolutely terrified of being called a racist or something like that because you're criticizing Islam.
And we already have uh, all over the place, from the government to academics, everywhere, people are responding to attacks on Jews that have become quite common since October 7th. And they're saying we have to fight against anti Semitism and Islamophobia, as if Muslims are also being attacked. So it's interesting to note, David, also this week, the FBI hate crime statistics for the past year came out.
Ooh.
And anti-Jewish hate crimes are number one.
Shocker.
1,071 anti-Jewish hate crimes. Meanwhile, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In eighth place in the hate crime rate standings are anti-Islamic or anti-Muslim hate crimes with 140. So anti-Jewish hate crimes are more than 7 times more common than anti-Muslim hate crimes. And anti-Muslim hate crimes are actually quite rare. And yet we always hear about anti-Semitism and Islamophobia as if they were being victimized on a more or less equal basis.
And if you notice, you don't hear a lot of Muslims saying, "Hey guys, we need to dial down our criticisms of Jews and Israel and so on because that's leading to anti-Semitic hate crimes." Instead of no, dial those things up. Who cares who cares how many attacks there are? But whatever you do, don't criticize Islam because people are just killing Muslims left and right.
Mm-hmm. It's totally fictional. Meanwhile, though, people are killing non-Muslims. Do you remember this guy? This guy in the middle, little bald-headed fella with the beard, Ahmed al-Issa. And he is the one who entered a supermarket in Colorado in 2021 and murdered 10 people. And he has only now been found guilty, even though he was simultaneously declared mentally ill. The mental illness declaration did not stop him from being found guilty. But there's so many strange things about this case. It didn't come to trial all this time until now because his lawyers were arguing that he was mentally ill and thus could not be put on trial, could not be held responsible for his actions. And yet there's a very interesting detail about his supermarket shooting spree. And that is, David, that he stripped to his underwear as he was shooting people. And when the police got him, he's walking out of the store in his underwear. Now, what does that suggest about what this was all about?
That kind of sounds like he was getting naked for his houris he was about to meet.
That's right. Islam considers paradise to be a physical place, just like Allah has a physical body. And the houris love the martyrs. They find the blood to be sexually arousing. And the martyrs are prepared to meet them as physical beings. This is not metaphor or spiritualized in Islamic tradition. It's considered to be real stuff, physical stuff. So Muhammad Atta, the 9/11 hijacker, you know that his luggage was stopped, but he wasn't. So in his luggage, they found that he had this magnificent tuxedo. He was going to go into paradise. He was going to change into his best clothes and go meet the virgins decked out. But this guy was just going to go in naked. And yet it never even came up.
No.
In the trial, no mention
there,
of Islam. No, not for this guy. He was ready.
Yeah, just wants to dive right in.
Yeah, he was ready to go. But the whole controversy about him was that he was whether he was mentally ill or not. and yet it's if when you read the story, he sounds like a jihadi. Not only did he take off his clothes, but he went through firing at his semi-automatic pistol, saying, "This is fun." And oh yeah, here it is. He'd searched online the day before for public places to attack in Boulder, Colorado, including bars and restaurants. Then he started searching for large stores. He he shot people more or less at random, shooting as many as he could. These things are consistent with the MO of jihadis we have seen elsewhere, and there's more as well, but it never even came close to being mentioned at the trial that he might be a jihadi.
And earlier in this show, we talked about the actual consequences of people and their stupid, these journalists and so on who constantly defend and shield Islam from criticism. And then meanwhile, temporary marriage is going through the roof in Indonesia. Iraqi women are terrified about the impact on young girls, because now the religious leaders are going to be given more say in government, and the women know exactly what this means. This means child marriage. Why did they zero in on that? There's like, oh no, these guys are getting a say? Child marriage. Anyway, there's massive real world suffering because of Islam, and Western journalists, they got a hand in it. And when it comes to this, these journalists and politicians for decades have been bombarding people with Islam is so peaceful, you have to be absolutely insane. You have to be out of your mind bonkers to look at such wonderful, peaceful teachings and think that it calls for violence. And therefore, when they see a guy, Allahu Akbar, slaughtering people, he's got to be nuts. He has to be. That's the only possible interpretation.
There you go.
And so people got a lot of blood on their hands, Robert. A lot of blood on a lot of hands.
Yep, and more every day. And so let's see. I think I'm on the road again next week, but we will be back soon with more jihad, if there is any. And meanwhile, we'll be back around tomorrow night, God willing, with discussion of the blockbuster Muhammad, a critical biography, which you can get right now at Amazon, and be ready for our discussion tomorrow. And leave a review if you like it, and see how long it takes for them to take it down. But in any case, until then, pray, hope, and don't worry.